Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is Grayson Harris, and today we are joined by Brandon Williams. He is the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of Greater St. Louis, and they are doing incredible work just enriching the lives and building better futures for the youth of their area. Brandon, thank you for joining us today. What do you have going on out there in St. Louis?
Man, thank you for having me, Grayson. Really appreciate the opportunity just to kind of talk about what we're doing here in the greater St. Louis area. As you all may or may not know, we had a major tornado came through here in May. So a lot of our work right now is focused on making sure that we're creating resources and opportunities for the youth that were affected, whether they were from our club or from the areas that we really serve, just to make sure that number one, that their mental health is good, that they understand that they're supported, that they are cared for, because it all happened right at the end of summer, but you're still dealing with it as you start to begin the new school year, right? So making sure that book bags and supplies and things of that nature are all taken care of. And so we're really just rolling right now. We're gearing up for our annual gala, which is happening towards the end of this year. It's our biggest fundraising event. It supports our Youth of the Year program, which is essentially a program where students get the opportunity to go through modules of character leadership and personal development. And then they have to write speeches, give speeches. We have four finalists, and here's the cool part, Grayson. The winner gets $5,000 and a car.
Amazing.
It's a really cool and exciting times for us, and we're excited to really put this event together year after year.
That's incredible. And, for our audience, the Boys and Girls Club is a name brand that's really well recognized across the United States. What would you say is, a specific need that you are really meeting for the youth out in St. Louis that you've seen as you've stepped into this role?
Yeah, I think when you look at our club in particular, the Greater St. Louis clubs, we have done a lot of merging over the last few years. So we've been able to really bring together not only after school summer camp programming, right? But we have really leaned into career readiness and workforce development programming on top of being able to capitalize on our sports programs that have really become a foundational component as well. It's always been sports has always been that carrot to get the attention of young people. I was a former club kid myself, so I played sports here, and so it's so many stories of young people, girls and boys, that played sports or were in some capacity, whether it's a cheerleader or a trainer. Just being around sports has helped elevate their career trajectory. So really leaning heavily into those two areas, making sure our facilities are upgraded and in the right conditions, and making sure that our summer internship program is the best in class, and bringing on top corporations to help facilitate it.
Is incredible. And that kind of speaks a little bit to your background from what I understand as well. Tell me a little bit more about your kind of journey to getting into this role as CEO. I think you're coming up on 1 year. How has that been?
Yeah, no, it's really been, man, I would never in a million years have thought that I would be in this position to be able to lead the organization that led you as a young person. Never thought about it,
Mm.
right? My background, I played in the National Football League, so went to University of Wisconsin, played in the National Football League. I was third round pick, played for about 4 years, left the NFL, got into broadcasting. So I was a broadcaster for Big Ten Network, ESPN, our local Fox affiliate here, for almost 10 years. I thought I was going to be the next Kirk Herbstreit, Desmond Howard on college game day, right? When I'm 75, like Lee Corso, just kicking the bucket right there
Yeah.
and just keeping it going. But life always gives you different paths and different opportunities. And I really lean heavily into my faith, and you pray about different opportunities, and when they come, you just ask God for guidance, right? And so as I went through this journey of being in broadcasting, I also wrote a book. I was a speaker. I was a financial advisor for 4 years. I was a leadership and life coach for a few years as well. Got certified, and really, but I've always been really in my career has always kind of been about people and
Mm.
psychology of human, and how people think and how you lead people, how you build culture, and really just trying to be a good person. I always lean into what I call the it factor: intelligence, intangibles, and toughness. And
Love
those
it.
kind of factors really if you hone in on all of those, no matter what career, if you're an entrepreneur or if you're in corporate America, if you're a homemaker, if you really decide that I'm gonna lean into those characteristics and really grow myself personally in those areas, then you can be successful. So transitioned out of broadcasting, went back to school, got my MBA here in St. Louis at Lindenwood University. Started working at Anheuser-Busch. So Anheuser-Busch is number one in class, right? The biggest beer company in the world. And I worked here locally in our innovations marketing department. So I really helped bring products, either bring a new product to the market by being essentially a project manager and working with 20 experts who knew 10 times more than me about their area of expertise, or updating and upgrading an existing product that we already had in the market. So did that for a couple of years and transitioned from there. And I got the opportunity to get back into sports on the executive level, and I was the vice president of team business for the St. Louis Battlehawks. St. Louis Battlehawks is a part of the XFL, formerly
Yeah.
the UFL, right? And so me and my team, we pretty much ran everything from marketing, communications, sponsorships, ticket sales,
Building that market.
PR. Oh yeah, and in
Yeah.
that market, our market is crazy, right? We had a record of like 41,000 people at a game, biggest spring football game in the history of spring football, and so to be able to do that in St. Louis, a place where I played in the NFL here in
Yeah.
St. Louis, was really something that I could never imagine. It's funny because I was talking to this lady randomly. I think I was at the airport, and we struck up a conversation, and she asked me what I do and my background, and so I started telling her all these things that I've done, and she was like, wow, you've lived almost 3 lifetimes already. You've done things that most people dream of doing one. You've done all of them. And so I never reflected on that. I never thought about that, and so it actually made me take a step back and just think of how grateful I am to
Mm.
have been able to make it to the NFL, to be a broadcaster on TV in front of millions of people, then run a football team, a major, a spring league, right? And work at Anheuser-Busch. It's a company that's an amazing background and history, right? So it just gave me some humility and just thinking about the journey that I've been on, and some of the places I've been. And then about a year ago, I got a LinkedIn message asking me if I knew anybody that would be interested in this role as the CEO of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater St. Louis. And I was like, I think I know one guy, maybe one guy, right? And of course, we had some great conversations. I did several interviews, and one of the things that I asked before really digging into this role and the interview process was, I asked a lot of my peers in this market, what do you think of the role? Not me taking the role, but what do you think of the actual role itself? And so, yeah, and so most of my peers and colleagues were like, look, this is the most important and impactful role for the youth of St. Louis, and you have to take this role. And I was like, whoa, okay, makes sense. And so from that point on, I really started to dig into the mechanics and trying to really understand what's going on with the organization, what is the impact of the organization, what is the history, where has it been, and what do I believe the future for this organization could actually look like. So, several about 4 months later, I end up being a finalist, and I end up getting offered the position. And that was November of that was October of last year, and I started in November of last year. And so
Amazing.
we're pulling up on year one, man.
That's exciting. Well, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your perspective. A lot of nonprofit leaders, especially right now, turnover, especially within the executive position, is at a really high rate. Tell me a little bit about how that transition was. What was that first couple of months? Was it a lot of listening and learning? And then how was the transition to actually implementing change that you were seeing was needed at the organization?
Yeah, so for me, I was taking over an organization that has had one president in 28, 29 years, the great Dr. Flint Fowler. He's an amazing guy. I still get the chance to talk to him every other day, interact with him, leverage him and his knowledge and his just inspirational talks and stuff like that. And so for me, it was a challenge because I'm younger. I'm 41. I've never worked in nonprofit before. I have a business background in several areas, and then I have a untraditional vision that I have on how we elevate the organization into the next level. And for me, it was really all about the brand awareness. People know who we are, but they don't know what we do. And that was something that it landed. It sounds cool. It landed well as a top of the line headline. But once you really start digging into it, you have to work with. So I have 40 board members when I first came on. That means I have 40 bosses, and then 120 plus staff. So I'm immediately coming into an organization where there's a culture already built, there's systems and processes that are already there. And I have to do my due diligence in coming in and evaluating all of those processes, all of those systems, sitting down with most of the staff, most of my leadership staff, not the 125, probably about 15, and then meeting with all of my board members because they are my strategic partners. And so I think transitioning in, this was the first time that they had to hire a new CEO. This was me learning what does it mean to work with the board. And so that transition in the first 6 months was tough. It was really tough, because I had, and at the same time I'm learning my board, they're learning me, but then the staff is learning me, and we're having turnover, we're having people that want to that are leaving the organization, going to opportunities, because when you have a president that was there for 28 years, you have loyalty to that person, and they stuck around because of that person. But since that person is gone, they're like, well, now this is my opportunity to leave as well, and that's totally fine, right? And it's not a negative thing. It's just something that happens when you have transition. And so for me, that looked like, all right, this person is leaving. How do we transition them out properly so that I could hire the right person, bring in the right person so that we can implement some of the things that I want to implement, and just give a new perspective and a new set of eyes for each department
Yeah.
and how it should be ran and how we should be doing things. And I think we're getting to a place where the culture is being built to where everybody is buying in, where everybody feels heard and seen. One of our team norms is that you put everything on the table, deliver the mail, being able to talk to people and without repercussions is a very important thing. And so, and I got these things all in my office, right? Operate in excellence, support everyone's experience. So these are things that's a part of my background too. I was a leadership development coach for, almost 2.5 years. And so I would go into organizations and basically help them build team norms, build culture, identify those sacred cows of people who are just terrorizing the rest of the organization, and just addressing it like an adult. And so, but it takes time. It doesn't happen in the first meeting, in the first 30 days. It takes 9 months, a year for that type of vibe to really set in and people to be like, oh, he meant what he said when he said we was gonna follow all 10 of these team norms. He's upholding those himself. So I don't have a choice but to show up every day like that because that's how he's showing up, right? That's how the new staff is showing up. The new staff that comes in, all they know is the team norm. So it's been a good transition. We're getting to a place where we're making some hay. I would say my PR and comms department has been doing an amazing job of putting us in a position where people can hear our story
Mm.
consistently. I tasked that department with getting us on TV, radio, or some form of podcast or earned media 48 out of 52 weeks out of the year. So people could always see when they think of who is the leader in youth development, they think of us. But they don't just say, "Oh, that's logo. Oh, yeah, Boys and Girls Club," and then you say, "Well, what do they do?" I think they just got they do some teams. They got a building over there and they play sports. No, I want people to understand. We have 18 programs. We serve 18,000 kids. We've been doing this for a long time, and we're going to continue to do it, and we're going to elevate it. And we want you to know how we do it because the more you know about us, the more you can think intrinsically about who we should partner with and
Yeah.
ideas that you could bring to the table, sponsorship. You'll be amazed at how many people have just reached out to us and say, I want to donate. I want to be a part of this. Just because, hey, I seen that article, I seen that interview that you did, and I like what you guys are doing. I didn't know that you did that, right? How crazy is that? So It's been a good run, man, and we're going to keep on pressing in to the earned media. But obviously, earned media doesn't bring dollars to the bottom line, but it does have a monetary value that you can show that brings value back to your organization.
I love that. I would love to, as you talked about wanting to be that, beacon of building the youth of the next generation. What do you see as the biggest challenges and needs that are facing the youth of St. Louis over the next few years?
Yeah, I think number one is economic mobility, right? Giving them access to opportunities to make money. This generation, they love money, and it's just the reality. And I'm not saying that former generations didn't, but it is so prevalent in their face so much
Mhm.
through social media. Everybody's trying to live this lifestyle, right? And money and cars and just being very flashy and just being so open about it that money is a thing to them that they have a different relationship with money. And the haves and the have-nots is becoming a real thing. And I think economic mobility for them is important. Creating different spaces for them to learn, for them to get training, for them to build relationship, to have those skill sets where interview skills, communication skills, writing skills, reading is so important as well because I have kids myself and just getting them to read a book, it's like when they actually do it, they actually can read. It's like,
Yeah,
but
it's
why,
all
you
with
know,
the world, yeah.
yeah, and so but getting them to read, getting them to lean into the education is still cool, it's still important, and if you elevate your education, you can elevate the amount of money that you can make. That's still a thing. Like, that's not a facade. I know everybody now for the last 10 years is like, "Oh, entrepreneurship is the way to go. Don't go to school. School is crazy." And it's like, "Nah, dude, like I got a master's degree, and if I didn't have a master's degree, I wouldn't have been able to have the foundational knowledge and thought processes that I needed to do entrepreneurial things, to run a corporation, to run an organization." So education is still cool. So economic mobility, if I could put it in a box, because if you look at our region is having a lot of transition as well. People are moving in and out. We're losing a lot of young talent that go to high school, go to college, and then they move to another city. That's taking a tax base away. So how do you address that? You address that by saying, look, let me incentivize this young person staying in St. Louis, growing a family in St. Louis, therefore building a community in St. Louis.
Love that. And, for our nonprofit audience, if you could leave them with a lesson that you have learned in this last year, what would that like if you could sum it up in a box as you just beautifully did for the where the youth are going?
Oh man, so you don't know what it's like to be a CEO until you become a CEO. And I would say anybody that's in nonprofit, don't look. I don't even like the term nonprofit. It's an oxymoron. We make profit,
It's
right?
a tax status. It's not
It's a
a
tax
way of
status. It's
running
not a
organization.
way of running your actual organization. And I hear people a lot of times that make a joke about, "Oh, if your business ain't making money, it's a nonprofit. You just wasting time." I'm like, "Well, buddy, I run a nonprofit and I see what my 990 and my audited financials look like. And we have assets, we own buildings and all these different things. So we're not playing games, right?" And so I would say to anybody that's in nonprofit, don't look at your business as nonprofit. Look at it as a business. Understands what is the product that you're actually selling, that you're actually giving to the community for them to give back to you. Hone in on that product, figure out who that customer base is, understand what pulls at the heartstrings of that particular group of people because they're getting value out of giving and you should be receiving value, but you also should understand what value you can give just like with any other business. So don't look at your business any differently. Yes, programming is a part of it, but the mission is important as well. But no money, no mission. Period.
And for your community listening in from St. Louis, when is this gala? How do they get involved?
Yeah, so our Great Futures Gala is November the 12th. It's at 6 p.m. on a Wednesday at 6 p.m. Again, this is our biggest fundraiser of the year. It will be at what's the name of this place? I always forget the name of the soccer stadium because they just changed Energizer Park. That's what it is. I always want to say Enterprise, but Energizer Park is the name of the soccer stadium. It is where St. Louis SC plays. We have a great relationship with them. We're taking over the soccer stadium, so it'll be a
Amazing.
lot of fun. You can go to bgcstl.org. Tables are still for sale and sponsorships are still available. We're very excited for this year, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
That is amazing. Well, Brandon, thank you so much for joining and sharing more about the incredible journey that's taken you to becoming the CEO out there, the Boys and Girls Club of Greater St. Louis, and your thoughts on where the need is over the next few years, and how you will be fulfilling that need with your organization. Thank you for joining.
All right. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.